Hello, good afternoon. Hope you are doing well. Welcome to another live. It's Tuesday, and we are about halfway through March. And today I'm going to be talking about a little more about how to choose where you put your time and energy this spring. It's sort of a continuation of last week's topic. Because once you decide what your priorities are going to be in this next season, once you're kind of aware of what's going to be going on, how do you follow through, right? Because I'm all for infusing more joy and fulfillment into our lives, but they don't always go hand in hand, right? The things that we know match our values don't always feel fun, and some days you just don't feel like following through on your plan. So last week, I walked you through some exercises. We talked about really just preparing for the coming season, thinking about what's coming up for you, what's coming up for your family, what's on the calendar, what goals might you have in your business, as well as putting a heavy focus on what are some things that you really love about spring, what are some things that you are looking forward to in the coming season that you want to make sure you're creating space for. So if you missed that, it's last week's live from March 7th. Definitely go check that out and work through those exercises. I just think it's a really fun thing to do for each season, and it also helps us to be more intentional and to go in there actually having a plan and knowing what we want to get out of it. One of the things that I've really come to learn myself is that if I find that I get to the end of something, whether it be a season, whether it be, like a holiday like Mother's Day or my birthday or a trip, if I get to the end of something and I feel disappointed or I feel let down by it, a lot of times it's because I didn't actually have clear expectations or goals for it in the first place. I get to the end and I'm like, well, I don't know what I wanted that to be, but this was not it. And so when we can put some thought into what we want something to be, that allows us to create an intention, create a plan, and we're more likely to get what we want out of it. Right? So this week, we're kind of building on that idea and going a little bit deeper into how to decide which of those things that were on your lists are your top priorities, because everything can't be the most important thing all at the same time. We know that that doesn't work, right? Our needs and schedules and our activities shift from season to season, and we want to embrace that and lean into that rather than fight against it. And I'm going to share a couple of examples with you about kind of how that plays out for our family, and then also invite you to think about what you want to focus your attention on and how you can do that in a more simple and enjoyable way. If you are new here, hello, welcome. My name's Jenna of J Lane Virtual Solutions, and I help you spend less time on the must-dos and create more time for joy and the things that you want to do through simple systems and rhythms for both your home and your business. They both have lots of moving parts. We have a lot going on as moms, as business owners, as human people. And when you can create some structure around those parts, we can do things in a more simple way that takes less time and energy and open up more time and space for the things that you really enjoy and that you really want to be doing, and the things that are most aligned with your values, which is always what we're talking about, but for sure what we're talking about today. So when you're living in alignment with your values, we're kind of talking about joy and fulfillment today. Do they always go hand in hand? Because these are two things that are sort of the overarching ideas for me, right? Things that I'm always looking for more of in my own life, things that I want to be helping my clients experience more of in their life. If you're not doing something that's bringing you some kind of fulfillment or satisfaction or bringing you some kind of joy, we should examine whether it's something that's actually important to you. And sometimes the answer will be yes. But I also think that there are a lot of things that we can shift. And if you're able to identify what your priorities are, what's most important to you, and follow through on them, I would like to argue that you'll experience more of both joy and fulfillment. But the things that we value don't always feel fun. Sometimes they feel hard or boring, or we're just not in the mood. Sometimes they're not really for us, they're for someone else. And so that's one of the areas we're going to dive into today. The other is, what do you do when you notice that the way you're living isn't really aligned with your values and priorities? How can you reset that, and how can you put a little more intention behind the way you're spending your time? So I want to get into that one first. Before we go any farther, if you're watching, whether you're live or on the replay, say hello in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. And I just love to hear anything that comes up for you as we're going through these couple of topics today. So I first want to talk about what happens when you notice that you've gotten off track. Like maybe you had a plan, maybe you didn't, but you get to the end of something and you're like, whoa, what just happened? That's not what I meant it to be. Where did the time go? Like, I feel like that's our common thought. Where did the time go? How did this get away from me? Right? So this is something that I really experienced this fall, and you've probably heard me talk about, if you've been on these lives or follow me on social media, that one of my values has a lot to do with sustainability, but the area I tend to focus my energy on is the way that we eat. We keep chickens, I grow a garden, I try to source from local farmers, especially during our growing season, right? Like I live in Pennsylvania, so in the middle of winter, there's not a lot going on the local food scene. Certainly some things, but you know, I like to not only cook and grow and prepare local ingredients during the growing season, but I also like to preserve foods, and I like to do some canning and freezing and things like that. And I got to, you know, toward the end of the fall last year, and I was just looking and I was like, okay, so I went to the farmer's market like 2 or 3 times the whole summer. I hardly did any canning. I made a couple of jams. I didn't really freeze anything. Like, all these things that I had done year after year before, I just didn't do them last year. And then I got to the end of the season and I felt like I had missed it. And I was really disappointed that that time had slipped away and I hadn't used it the way that I wanted to. And I, of course, had lots of excuses and lots of reasons for this. But really, once it came down to it, it was like, okay, so what do I do better next time, right? And so that's when we start to get into our plan. Number one, I've identified that this is an area of priority for me because it is really fulfilling to me. I love the connection to my community of meeting the farmers at the farmer's market. We also get a weekly farm box from one of my favorite farms in town. We, you know, get milk from our milkman. We go pick berries. We do these things, and I feel really connected to the place where I live and to the other people who are in this community, and particularly the people who are growing and producing this food for us. I also think it's a really valuable lesson for my kids to understand, where we live in a very technologically driven world, to understand on a really basic level where the food comes from that we're eating every day. So I was able to kind of articulate to myself what those values are and to reaffirm that this is something that's still really important to me. And so now I'm going to look at how I can make it, how I can reincorporate it into our lives. Just because I missed some things this year doesn't mean that I'm never doing it again, right? So we can give ourselves some grace and be patient with ourselves and realize that, yeah, there are a lot of other things going on, and I kind of let this one slip this time. But now that I've noticed that it really matters to me again, I'm going to make a plan. So that's the first thing, is catching something that you've missed, or something that like just doesn't feel right, that just feels kind of off. And so I'm going to share some of the strategies that I'm using to make sure that I create time and space for this a little bit later on in this video. But it comes down to making a plan and just realizing that it is a priority and keeping it top of mind. So the other area that I want to touch on before we go into like the specifics, the how-tos, is what about when we have something on our schedule or whatever that we don't really enjoy, that maybe we think we don't really want to do. And I heard this idea a while ago, and I wish I could remember where, but I don't, that it was like an affirmation or a mantra almost, that I don't do anything I don't want to do. And when I first heard this, I felt really resistant about it because it feels very self-centered, kind of bratty when you hear it. But when it was explained, it made a lot more sense, and it made me really think about this concept of living our values. So the idea is that I don't do anything I want to do. And so someone might say, okay, well, I don't want to cook dinner. I don't want to do the laundry. But if we take it a little deeper, we see that what I do want is for my kids to have a nutritious meal, for us to sit down and have dinner as a family, for my kids to be well nourished and healthy. So there are these deeper goals behind this one action of cooking dinner tonight. And sometimes I don't cook dinner tonight. Let's be honest. Some nights we have takeout and or something super easy. You know, I don't want to do the laundry, but I do like to have clean clothes to wear. So we can kind of use that idea as a tool. If there's something that you don't feel like doing, ask yourself, okay, well, why am I doing it? Because sometimes there will be a why that continues to spur you into action, and sometimes there won't. And those are the times when we can think about removing something from the to-do list or from the plan, or if it is something that is really essential for whatever reason, that's one of the areas where we're going to focus real hard on simplifying, streamlining, outsourcing, making it take as little of your time and energy as possible if it's one of those things that you just truly hate doing. So the example of this that I am experiencing right now, well, we're kind of on an in-between, is kids' sports. Okay. Some moms that I know take really great joy out of being deeply involved in their kids' sports and extracurriculars, and that's wonderful. I am not really one of those people. You know, I don't really look forward to Little League season. It's more of a dread type of a situation. And so that's something that I've been thinking about as we go into spring season. And I say we're in an in-between because my oldest just finished basketball like a week ago. We have a few weeks here, and then both boys are going to be in Little League within the next month or so. So there are a few sort of exercises that I've been through with myself that I want to share with you, because if you have something like this, it doesn't have to be kids' sports. It can be something that you know is coming up that you feel like you have to do, but you don't really want to do it. So the first thing is kind of going through that exercise of I don't do anything I don't want to do. Okay, so why are we doing this, right? Looking at the deeper purpose or values that are underneath this Little League thing, right? Do I like spending 3 or 4 nights a week at the ball field when I could be sitting on my couch? Not really. So why am I doing it? So one of my goals as a mom is to provide experiences for my kids too. I want my kids to feel joy and fulfillment. I want them to experience growth and community and the friendships that they form on their team. I want to help them learn valuable skills and grow into kind, capable adults. And my husband and I believe that they learn a lot of those skills through activities like sports. They learn teamwork. They learn how to be a gracious winner, how to be a gracious loser, how to practice if you want to improve at something. Lots and lots of lessons, right? And so we have made the choice, and we do the sports that our kids are interested in doing. So we've made the choice to do this. And then the next part of that exercise is, okay, so we're doing this. Whether I'm excited about it or not, the boys are super excited. How can I make it simpler and more enjoyable for myself, right? I want to provide them this opportunity. I see the value. It's a priority. But then what? Like, I don't have to stay in that dread place. I can take it another step, okay? So there are a few things that actually, I think it was last week. It's either last week or today, yesterday maybe. Anyway, I actually had a post about some of the things that I do during baseball season to make things run a little more smoothly. So check that out if you are in a similar situation. But we set some limits. We do some streamlining and some simplifying around it. So the first thing is, in our family, our kids do one activity at a time. Now, this does not have to be a limit for your family. You get to decide what activities and how many and when your kids are doing. But for us, I have always been kind of afraid, I think, of overscheduling. And so we do one sport, one activity at a time. So this season, they are playing Little League. We're not also doing swim lessons and also doing, I don't know, whatever, soccer, and also, like this is what we're committed to doing. The other thing is that when my kids are playing 2 games a week, each of them for like 2.5 months, I hope I'm not going to get a bad mom label here, but I don't feel like I have to be at every single one of those games. So my husband and I do a little bit of divide and conquer parenting here. If the kids are at the ball field Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe he goes 2 nights and I go 2 nights. Or we each take a night or 2 and then we go one night as a whole family. But realizing that you have options, and I know friends of mine who have multiple kids in sports at different places, and one of them, her husband's often working, but she has a mother-in-law who can help. So all of our support systems look a little bit different and our schedules look a little bit different, but I'd invite you to just kind of get curious and get a little creative with what your options are. Just because they're there all those nights doesn't mean that you have to be there all of those nights. Okay, and then when I'm at those games, how can I make it more enjoyable for myself? So I try to eat pretty healthy most of the time, but I love a treat. I love some junky food once in a while. So sometimes when I'm at the game, I'll get myself a soft pretzel or a bag of popcorn, like something that I wouldn't normally have that feels like a little treat that I can kind of enjoy while I'm sitting there. Going back to the community piece, if I can make a friend or two with some of the other parents on the team, that makes it more enjoyable. Actually, one of the most fun games for me last year was when one of my friends brought her 2 sons. They don't play baseball, but they thought it would be cool to see my kid play in a game. So they came, and it was kind of seeing it through a new lens, watching these other kids watch my kid, and it was a really fun thing to do. So, another thing is sometimes I have to bring my son a half an hour or so early to warm up and all of that. And so where he plays, there are like 4 fields all in the same area. And so before his game starts, I'll walk just a couple of laps, get a little movement in, get a little fresh air before I sit down in the bleachers for his game. So again, get curious, brainstorm, get creative, talk to some friends or family about it. Talk to me about it. Share in the comments what you're dealing with and some ideas that you have, and I'd be happy to share ideas, suggestions, thoughts with you on how to make some of these things more enjoyable. So the next part I want to get into is how, once you have your priorities, once you have your plan, how can we make things easier to follow through, and how can we make it more enjoyable? So I kind of covered both of those related to the Little League thing, but I wanted to circle back because when I realized last fall that I hadn't spent the time in my garden that I wanted to, that I hadn't done the food preserving, that I hadn't gone to the farmer's market, it was like, okay, why not? Part of me wanted to blame it on my business, wanted to blame it on the fact that I was working more so I didn't have time to do these things. Now, I work 15 to 20 hours a week in my business. I am committed to spending that time in it, but working a half-time schedule does not mean that I don't have any time for anything else, right? I realized I was making it this all or nothing thing, and it's not. I can do both, right? Sometimes we get ourselves in that trap. So there are a couple of things that I am experimenting with that I thought I would share. So one is making it easier. It's making it more convenient and it's making it a part of my daily routine. So one thing that I did, I've been reading about habits. I feel some habit-focused lives and content coming soon, but I set an alarm on my phone for a half an hour before my kids come home from school. That's the time when I usually try to stop working anyway, but rather than poking around, folding laundry, checking social media, whatever, I am going to dedicate that 30 minutes every day to being out in my garden or my yard, checking on the chickens, weeding, whatever it is. So I set an alarm on my phone that literally says out loud to me, stop working and go outside. With my idea being that if I'm out there, I'm going to do something. I'm not just going to like stand in the yard and stare at a tree for let's not say never, but probably not going to do that. You know, I'm going to go like clean up a garden bed or do some weeding or freshen up the chicken coop or something, right? I also am making it more convenient for myself by putting a tool rack on the porch, which is right next to my garden. The shed is not that far away, but it's far enough away that it deters me. It makes me think that it takes too long to get things out and put them away. So there's a tool rack right on the front porch, and I bought this little canvas tote bag that has my gloves, my little hand tools, my twine, seed packets, all the little things that I might need, and I put it right by the door, right by a pair of rain pants and a jacket that I can just put on over whatever I'm wearing. Because my excuses were, I have to change my clothes because I don't want my nice clothes to get dirty. I have to find all my stuff. It takes so long. So I'm eliminating some of those excuses and making it more convenient for me to do the thing that I want to do, right? I'm creating time for it and I'm making it more convenient. And then the other thing was I want to go to the farmer's market more this year. And it feels like a chore sometimes, even though it's something I want to do, to get up on a Saturday morning, get myself dressed, leave the house, right? So then I started thinking, okay, how can I make it more enjoyable and how can I motivate myself to do it? So I switched our weekly veggie box that we go pick up from my favorite farm to every 2 weeks. So I'm thinking, okay, in between, if I don't have a veggie box, I'm going to go to the market and see what they have. And how can I make it more enjoyable? So many ways. Buying a giant cinnamon roll every Saturday probably shouldn't be it, but I can do things like buy myself fresh flowers. One of the farmers there grows the most beautiful bouquets. Buy myself fresh flowers while I'm there, or stop into my favorite coffee shop, which is a block away, or even go to the library and pick out a new book, right? So if I can match the farmer's market, which I do find to be enjoyable, with something else that I really find enjoyable that feels like a treat or feels like something nice for me, then I think I'm more likely to do it. So stay tuned. I'll let you know if these new plans are working. But I want to know from you, what are you prioritizing this season? And if there are areas of that that feel hard or heavy, or that don't feel fun, it's something that you're dreading more than looking forward to, I'd really like to know what some of those are, because I love brainstorming solutions for this kind of thing, and I would love to help you come up with some ideas and really get curious about what's going on with those so that you can follow through on the things that you want to be doing, even when you're not in the mood to do it, right? So that is it for this week. I would love to either talk with you in the comments, or if you want to go a little bit deeper into this, I'd love to invite you to book a free call with me. We get 45 minutes, just the two of us, talking about what's coming up for you this season, what you want to be doing more of, what maybe you feel like you missed out on last year that you want to make sure is front and center this year, and just really help you identify what those priorities are for you and brainstorm some fun tips and strategies to incorporate them into your daily life. So you can find a link to book a call with me in the comments. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'll be back next week when it will maybe officially actually be springtime, I say, as it's been snowing here since yesterday afternoon. So have a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and I will see you next time.